listeners. I'm your host, Noah C. Mears, and you're listening to A Cup of Film. On this podcast, we will discuss filmmaking, movie reviews and news, and theater experience. Today, we are sitting down with real estate investor, Yellowcone Studios co-founder, and my friend, Chance Hale. In this episode today, we will be discussing A Man Called Otto, The Big Short, and Chance's love for film and interest in producing. Let us take a sip of cinema. Hi, Chance. How are you today?
I'm good, Noah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we could go ahead and get this episode going. First episode of the podcast. We've been talking about this since our days of working in the movie theater together back in McMinnville.
3-star cinema. Man, what a place to be.
Yeah, it's definitely a place where all 3,000 people in the town go to watch movies. I mean, nobody wants to travel outside of their little 15-mile radius to go to an AMC, and the prices are really good too. I mean, you're talking about a $6 matinee and $8 regular ticket, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you cannot beat the prices at the 3-star cinema.
And it's definitely a place where an older generation kind of gets to live back in the time that they grew up around, small theaters, small crowds. I mean, the concession stand is definitely the way it's been since 1983, I believe, or around that time.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, it was around the time of the last Star Wars movie, I believe. That was one of the first films that came out there. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start talking about A Man Called Otto.
I think it's ironic to talk about 3-star cinema and old people going to the theaters is a great transition.
Yeah, it's the perfect film for old people that's came out. But yeah, give me your general opinions and thoughts.
I absolutely loved Otto. I thought it was a great movie, especially for an older, more mature audience. I wouldn't say it's family friendly. I wouldn't bring your kids to this film, but I'd say if they're teenagers plus, it would be a perfect movie for the family.
Yeah, it definitely had a real family vibe to it. And of course, Tom Hanks appeals to everybody. You'll see people who are in their 20s, they adore Tom Hanks like myself, and then you'll see people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even up in 70s and 80s who grew up watching him in the 80s, grew up watching him in the 90s, 2000s. That's where I grew up around the Castaway era. That was actually the very first Tom Hanks movie I had seen that was like a drama. I'd seen That Thing You Do prior, and that's one of my favorite Tom Hanks films, but Castaway blew me away. But we're not going to try and get distracted with other films of his. But let's talk about the lifestyle of the elderly in that film. That's something you don't see very often.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting how Otto, the film, is very focused on a unique perspective of like life in the elderly, and a lot of other films that are out there, when you're getting older, they try to make it a comedy. A lot of those other films that star elderly actors and elderly people, they try to make light of growing old. And this took a totally different opposite spin on that and focused more on the more mental health side of things and how a large portion of elderly people actually struggle with mental illnesses and have mental health issues. And so I thought that was very unique to this film. You don't see a lot of films like that, and I thought that was a very important aspect because I think it resonated with a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom Hanks said in a recent interview for the film, he said, Otto's not an old grumpy man. He's right. That's what he is. Regardless of how strict you think he is or anything else, I mean, what he's doing and what he's trying to push in his little community, he's doing what's right for the community and what he believes to be right. So he sticks to his principles. That was kind of the next thing I was going to bring up. What do you think about just kind of the war background and just how he stuck to what he believed?
Otto definitely made me remind myself of my grandfather. Definitely that Vietnam era kind of person and mindset. He has military principles. He's down to earth and he's hardworking and he's very like the stereotypical baby boomer. In the sense that he's always busy, always having to work, and the baby boomers had just a mentality of always being busy and always working. And you see that today, in my grandparents, and I know you see it in your grandparents, and in the baby boomer generation as a whole.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like you said, dealing with the mental illness side of it, the suicide element in this film was definitely jarring in a lot of ways because you're hit with it in the very beginning. I mean,
Yeah, it's not on the nose.
n-
It punches you in the face.
it really does. I mean, the very first scene of the film, he's buying a rope, and my first time watching it, I've seen it 3 times in theaters, but the first time I watched it, I didn't really pick up on it because I didn't do any research into it. I didn't know that it was based on a book, and it's actually a remake of a Swedish version back in 2015, which it has a beautiful trailer. I've not seen it personally, but yeah, what do you think about the suicide element and how they kind of tackled the older generation? Something you don't see represented when you're talking about.
I definitely believe this film was needed because of that. That is definitely something that needs to be portrayed more into American audiences because a plenty of elderly people struggle with mental illnesses, and it's one of the largest, like suicide as a whole. I'm pretty certain that the elderly make up a disproportionate amount because once you get that age and you no longer have friends and family, whether you've outlived them or just you are lonely, it definitely is detrimental to your health. And so that's why I think they make up a very large portion of that suicide. So I felt like this was needed to kind of get the message out there that the elderly people are struggling, and anybody can use a friend. And so I hope that this wakes people up, and so that they can go and make friends with people that are at nursing homes or their grandparents or people that otherwise have very few friends.
Yeah, definitely. And just kind of getting a little bit lighter with the content. Where do you think this ranks among Tom Hanks' best performances?
I definitely say it's near the top. I don't think, in my opinion, it beats Forrest Gump, but
Hmm.
other than Forrest Gump, and I think this is definitely in his. I put it in his top 10 list.
Yeah, I definitely think it fits in the top 10 just because of how unique it is.
Hmm.
This is kind of the first film where we've seen Tom Hanks be the
Hmm.
old guy that people don't necessarily like character wise. Like, he doesn't get along with people. You usually see Tom Hanks being the friendly guy who gets
Hmm.
along. And I mean, our like a perspective on Tom Hanks is not necessarily changed by this, but it definitely showed that as he's getting older, he's kind of doing what Jack Nicholson did,
Hmm.
kind of growing into that grumpy old man phase, regardless
Right.
if he kind of comes back and makes it a little bit sweeter. Um,
And
but
another thing is, I find it very interesting how he's kind of branched out of roles and stuff. Because if you look at The Circle, that was really his first role as a major villain, and I thought he did that job phenomenally. It was an amazing performance, and I feel like Otto is another new niche that he's carving out, and I think he's trying to show his array of acting skills.
yeah, and a big question everybody asks anytime a Tom Hanks movie comes out is this his last great role in film? What do you think?
I sure hope not. I hope we have many more years of Tom Hanks, and I definitely look forward to seeing his acting and his ability to mold the characters that he's portraying. And I hope that he can show even more depth and more array of characters' emotions and feelings. So I hope this isn't the last.
Hopefully not. I mean, there's plenty of good concepts that are out there for him to tackle. But definitely check out Otto if you can. A Man Called Otto. It's based on a book. I can't remember the author's name currently, but I really can't remember it. I wish I could.
Yeah.
But no, Mark Forster does a great job. If he's worked on Peter Pan back in the day, he worked on World War Z off and on. He worked on Christopher Robin, a really sweet film. So again, you definitely get the sweet side of it, but you still tell like a very very emotional story, and that's what Forster's good at. But anyways, definitely check that out. We'll go ahead and move on to kind of the last good movie me and you have seen together, The Big Short, starring Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and a cast of really great actors. But as a finance major and kind of just really loving the side of business, what were your takeaways from watching that film?
I absolutely loved The Big Short. It was a great film, especially if you're in finance. But the downsides to The Big Short is if you are not a finance major or in the finance industry, the terms can be a little confusing. It was very term heavy. You have CDOs, you have tranches, you have short selling, you have plenty of terms that would probably be confusing to your average viewer, and I could understand how that could be off putting. And so I definitely think it's a niche film. I would even recommend it to all business majors. I would recommend it more specifically to finance side, and marketing probably wouldn't care about The Big Short really.
Oh yeah, definitely. It
Hmm.
it was definitely term heavy, and me being somebody who's not really on the finance spectrum of things, it was kind of difficult for me to be like, I had to keep poking you. I was like, hey, what does this mean? What does that mean?
And if you
Um,
compare it to like The Wolf of Wall Street, it's a totally different cinematic experience. You know, The Big Short is sometimes it's slow at certain points and confusing at other points, and the audience can get lost if you're not well in depth and well endowed. And whereas you contrast that with The Wolf of Wall Street, where is like the iconic finance movie, and it's super fast paced, it's crazy, it's wild, and people are just enthralled by the Wolf of Wall Street. But there's very few terms of the Wolf of Wall Street. It's pretty, made user friendly.
yeah, The Wolf of Wall Street was definitely, I feel like, dumbed down to where the audience could understand it a little bit better. And you definitely, I mean, what I liked about The Big Short is they would have like a guest on there who would be like, "Hey, I get it. You didn't understand this. Let me explain it to you." Like they had Anthony Bourdain on there. They had Margot Robbie. They had a few other people that would sit there and explain to you the terms in their own kind of niche way.
Mhm.
With Bourdain doing the food. Um,
I definitely thought that was an interesting, aspect of the film.
that
There's not many films that do that.
Yeah, that kind of break that fourth wall
Mhm.
and bring the audience in and say, "Hey, we're going to help you out here. You don't understand that." I
Mhm.
appreciate that they did that,
Mhm.
but I mean, again, like you said, compared to The Wolf of Wall Street, I definitely think it's below The Wolf of Wall Street just
In
because.
terms of like, if you're average
Oh
user,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely. If you were looking for a more finance film and you're finance heavy, I definitely would recommend The Big Short.
yeah, definitely. And again, it's a really great movie. I enjoyed it. What do you think about Steve Carell's part?
Love Steve Carell. I love
Definitely.
Steve Carell. I don't care what he's in; it's always amazing. He's a great actor, phenomenal, and his character in this film was probably one of his best performances. He really got that character in this film.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. And I'm like a huge Office fan. Like I love The Office. So watching Steve Carell kind of play this serious guy
and
who has all
angry.
this, yeah,
Yeah.
angry. He has all this like rage towards doing things right. And I mean Michael Scott, you compare the two parts, Michael Scott's does not care about anything. Finance does is spelled with like four different eyes. Like that's just how Steve Carell played Michael Scott. And again, I loved being able to see him kind of do both sides.
Mhm.
That was definitely the coolest element for me. Um, and you made an interesting point on Christian Bale's character. You weren't the biggest fan of his role in this.
And it's nothing against Christian Bale at all. Christian Bale is a phenomenal actor, and he did an amazing job performing the character that he portrayed in the film. However, he did an amazing job getting it so well that I believed that it was a person, and it just like was definitely not a person you'd want to meet in real life. It was very interesting and felt slightly exaggerated the extremes that he brought to the film that Christian Bale did. And in the finance world, we are, very suit tie, very clean cut, and we see his character who's very slack offish. It's very like kind of hard to believe, I guess. And that might just be my perspective from little old McMinnville, Tennessee, and not in Wall Street, but you know,
Yeah, you definitely saw him do his kind of method acting situation, and like you said, he got so deep into the character, and the character's supposed to be unlikable.
hmm
So when he just reached that peak moment where you're like, I'm not comfortable around this character, I mean, that just shows how good of a performance it is. But again, relating to the audience and making the audience comfortable is important. But I think something that people don't really see like the good side of is when a character makes you uncomfortable intentionally, that is like top tier acting, just in my opinion. But I do have a big question for you. We're all wondering, should we bet against the housing market? I mean,
oh goodness, as a finance major, get that quite a bit, and especially as a real estate investor, get that all the time. And my advice to people that are interested in investing in real estate, the economists are all divided right now. We don't know what the market's going to do, and we're kind of living through tumultuous times in the housing market. But my firm belief is that this situation in 2023 is totally unlike 2008. You see, the thing is in 2008, we were not having an inventory issue. Currently, there are not enough houses to meet demand. And so I do believe that housing prices will continue to decline, but once the Fed stops increasing mortgage rates, I think the prices will level off and we will have a stable housing market. So don't take advice from me, but that's my, if you, friendly advice to those that are interested.
Yeah, don't go off and try
Yeah,
and
don't do anything based on what I said,
yeah,
because if you do, I don't want to be sued. But if you do great, pat me on the back and say thanks, Chance.
definitely charge a commission for anybody who takes
Yeah,
advice.
absolutely. I'll take my 6% realtor's fee.
But kind of looking at a personal side of your own views on cinema, because you want to be a producer. I mean, we both started our film company, Yellow Cone Studios. We're co-founders. Excited to get that off the ground. But what sparked like your interest in filmmaking from a production side?
I've always loved film. I could always envision myself on stage, and acting and performing. And from a young age, I'd go to the movie theaters, and my grandmother would bring me all the way up here to Cookeville from McMinnville, Tennessee, and we'd go to the theater here, the AMC, and watch films, and just always enjoyed it, and just always loved it. And I was like, man, maybe I could do that one day. And here we are trying to. So
Yeah, we definitely found each other at like the perfect time for wanting to get into it because again, I'm a huge screenwriter. That's what I love doing, and I definitely want to dabble in directing, maybe make that something important. But screenwriting's been my main goal, and for you, productions like your main goal. You kind of want to dabble on the side with acting, which kind of
just a
works
little
out
bit.
for the both, just a little bit,
Just a
yeah,
little bit.
which kind of works out for both of us. But yeah, definitely. Working on films is going to be exciting in the future. Definitely stay tuned for any Yellowcomb Studios productions
I'm
and
excited to work
such.
with you.
Exactly. And I have a question for you. It's kind of a question we've been talking about lately. But do you believe that the blockbuster film, like quotation marks around that, is overdone today? Like, how do you feel?
I would say to an extent it's overdone. There are some that do it right. Like I felt like the Avatar Way of Water that just came out did a very great job. But if you contrast that with the Avengers and the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going down the path they're going down right now, I definitely believe that blockbuster films are kind of repeating the same stories they have over and over again. They're just washing, rinsing, and repeating. Like if you look at Halloween Kills, and it's just like another Halloween after another Halloween, and you look at the Scream, they're coming out with a new one, and I just feel like we're running out of like great ideas. I feel like there's a lot of less imagination and less creativity in the film industry as a whole right now. And so I definitely think that blockbusters are like we're gonna have to change something. We're definitely gonna have to get a change to help bring the audience numbers back out there and take them back to theaters and back to that cinematic experience.
Yeah, I definitely think we're lacking variety right now when you talk about movies that come out. I mean, so many times me and you will go to the AMC and we'll be like, "Oh, what are we going to watch?" We'll look through trailers of what's coming out and I mean, it's kind of the same story, same narrative, same plot points, same actors a lot of times too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you'll catch a time when Dwayne Johnson will have like 4 films
At the
out
same
at once.
time, yeah.
Exactly. And you're running into the same issue with I can't remember his name, but the actor for Creed 3 and he played
Michael B. Jordan.
no, the antagonist in that film, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he plays Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man.
Oh, yes.
I know we're both drawing a blank.
Ah.
I really should have looked that up, but no, you see, I mean, he has 2 films, and he's not even like a mainstream actor,
Right.
but he's definitely a really good villain. I mean, I enjoyed his role in Ant-Man, and I'm excited to watch the new Creed movie. I've not been a fan of the other 2 Creed films, but that's just
See,
kind of
I was slightly disappointed by his performance in Ant Man. I loved Ant Man the film, but
yeah.
his performance I definitely wasn't like the biggest fan of.
It was definitely kind of over the top. They kind of made him to be this big crazy guy who kind of just got defeated in the end. And I should have said spoilers because
Spoiler.
that's kind of a huge spoiler. But
We'll include it back in the beginning.
yeah, we'll be like warning spoilers for Ant-Man. But no, definitely seeing the way that Marvel kind of just said, "Hey, there's 14 million other of him." Like at the very end credit scene was kind of just like, "Are you serious? Like
Yeah.
we just fought this guy and now we're gonna bring him back a ton of times." I have
Same
mixed
thing that they did with
feelings.
Thanos.
Yeah, same thing with Thanos. The Thanos effect, bringing back the same villains. But we'll kind of move on here now to just give me your top 3 favorite movies.
Of like I've ever seen of all time.
Oh yeah, just and they don't have to necessarily be 1, 2, 3, but kind of just like
Okay, in no particular order then.
yeah, no
Okay.
particular order whatsoever.
Okay, Jurassic Park has to be in my top 3.
Definitely a top 3.
I'd say The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Love The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I'm struggling with that last one because I want it to be a good one.
It's hard when you're making up your top three favorite films. It's like, what do I include? What do I not include? I like to add one objective in there. Like, objectively, I think this is one of the greatest films made, and then kind of like two personals.
I'm gonna put Avatar on there. I love Avatar.
That's fair. First or second?
I love them both, but I'll go the first one.
Definitely. I could tell you had that vibe. I like the second one more personally, but also I wanted to ask you, what's your greatest cinema experience ever? Like, sit down in a theater, just captivated by the sound, by the cinematography, music,
When I
just
was
everything.
6 years old, my grandmother took me up here, as I'd mentioned, to Cookville to the AMC, and we watched Iron Man in 2008 in the theaters.
Definitely.
Loved Iron Man. Such an amazing film. You know, really started the cinematic experience, Marvel cinematic experience, and loved it.
Yeah, Iron Man was definitely a hard hitter in the beginning. I
Mhm.
mean, Robert Downey Jr. was in question as an actor, and people weren't really on his side, but he built a lovable character that everybody was sad to see go away at the end.
Mhm.
I think that was definitely the death of Marvel, personally. When Robert Downey Jr. died, Marvel died.
When Iron Man died,
yeah, that was kind
MCU
of the
said,
end.
"All
I
right."
mean, but also, I mean, could we see you playing Iron Man in the future with your acting
Iron
chops?
Man. Probably not Iron Man, but you might see me, play some roles. We'll see if I get an opportunity. So just for
Yeah.
fun, though, not a career.
Yeah, you definitely want to get started on your little acting tangent.
Just a little bit.
That Ronald
Gotta
Reagan.
get my acting classes in. So I'm gonna pull a Ronald Reagan one day.
Yeah, just start acting and then become president. Well, I think we did a good job here, kind of dissecting our films lately and what we've watched. We were gonna watch Cocaine Bear the other day, but
Yeah.
we just didn't get to. I wish we could have talked about that. I hear mixed reviews. People say they like it. People say they don't.
I'm excited to watch it. I think it's
am
just going to be a
too.
comedy. I don't expect it to be any amazing cinematic experience other than it's hopefully just going to be a good fun watch to just sit back, relax, and enjoy with your friends.
Definitely, we got to get a little group together and go and check that one out. Well, thanks for joining us today, Chance.
Thank you
was
for
a
having me.
pleasure. Absolutely, anytime. Well, that's all for today, listeners. Thank you for listening to A Cup of Film. Make sure to check us out on Instagram at A Cup of Film Podcast. Until next time, stay safe.